Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to this week's edition of Behind the Headlines with you here on British Muslim TV, Sky Channel 752. We're also online on the World Wide Web all across the globe, www.britishmuslim.tv, with me, Ahmad Bostan, with you for the next hour on today's show. Regular viewers of the program will be familiar with our format. Each and every week we have the great honor and privilege of being able to interview an inspirational personality, someone who has gone over and above the call of duty in their line of work, in the community, in a voluntary capacity, or whatever it may be. The aim is simple: to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to do better in whatever we are doing. Remember, the phone lines are always open. It's your program. It's your time to have your say. So do get in touch with us on the show. 01924 231 083 is the studio number. We're at British Muslim TV on Twitter. We're British Muslim TV on Facebook. And I'm delighted to say that today we have an inspirational personality, someone who from a very young age has achieved a huge amount, not only working in a voluntary capacity at 10 Downing Street, being invited by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth to the famous garden parties at Buckingham Palace, but also leading the largest youth organisation in the UK. He served as a local cabinet member in the Metropolitan Borough of Sandwell, and nowadays he is the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, possibly the youngest Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner in the country. It's my great honour to welcome Wasim Ali to the programme this evening. Assalamu alaikum, Wasim. Thank you very much for joining us on Behind the Headlines tonight.
Alaikum salam and assalamu alaikum to all your viewers today.
Walaikum salam. Now, Wasim, I want to start at the very beginning. MashaAllah, you've achieved a huge amount in a very short space of time, but where did it all begin? Where did you go to school? And did you know at that stage that you wanted to choose the world of politics as your future aspiration?
Well, thank you, Ahmed. I'm very grateful, alhamdulillah, for all the opportunities that I've had. And I mean, you know, to be quite frank, the very beginning started off when I was in school, and I didn't do too well in school, in all honesty. I was actually kicked out a few of my schools for bad behaviour, one involving throwing a dinner plate at a dinner lady, which is a story that often does follow me around today, and I wonder how on earth did that ever happen. But for me, really, I had no interest in politics, had no interest in doing something for the community, had no interest in giving back. I always envisaged my life being working as a builder, perhaps, or in the construction industry. But yeah, so it was definitely a big wake-up call for me when I entered the world of politics.
And how did that transition happen from a truant that was kicked out of school for bad behaviour to becoming, well, where you are today? Where did that transition happen? What stage was it in your time at school that you decided to get involved in working in the community, volunteering and that type of work?
Well, if I'm honest, I mean, it happened a bit later, to me, I reckon, anyway. I mean, I first got involved in politics in year 11, towards the end of my GCSEs, and you know, I was approached by the head teacher, and he said, you know, look, you're wasting your time here. You know, why are you messing around with these kids? Let's put you on a program. Let's get you involved in something. And I kind of batted it off, and I wasn't really interested. And he said, well, you know, I've got this opportunity. The local council are running elections to stand as a youth representative on the council, where you'll be able to influence cabinet members and the leader of the council and key stakeholders within the local authority. And I didn't really think much of it, but he kind of really pushed me and kind of said, well, you know, you're not coming to prom unless you agree to this. And you know, I really wanted to go to prom, and I thought, well, go on then, go and I'll stand and see what happens. Stood, and I didn't think I was going to win. Alhamdulillah, I ended up winning. And I guess there it was. So I think for me, my biggest push was my head teacher. He really pushed me. He really wanted me to go out there and achieve something. And then following my election, we'd have regular meetings outside the head teacher. You know, every morning I'd go to his office to have a catch-up with him before registration, and all the kids at school would think I'd got in trouble for some reason, or the teachers were like, oh no, he's at it again. What's he done now? He's going to go in detention or isolation for the day. But in fact, I was just going to see my head teacher to have a catch-up about what's happening locally and talk about local politics.
And how did that experience, being effectively a youth member on your local council, how did it change your mindset and change your direction in life from thinking you were going to be a builder to where I guess you are now?
Yeah, I mean, look for me, I think I would never regret anything. I think everything I've learned throughout my school experiences, the people I was with, the kind of things I got up to, they kind of build my skill set
Mm.
and build my personality. I mean, one of the reasons why I went into that area of, not wanting to engage in school is because I had a stammer. So, a stammer is the ability to not be able to talk properly. You stutter when you speak, and you're not able to say full sentences, and often other people finish your sentences before you're able to finish them, and that really knocks your confidence. So for me, the ability to speak was a massive, massive issue. I had no confidence at all. Didn't want to speak in classes. Didn't ever put my hand up. Teachers thought I was never engaged. But when I came to examinations, I always did better than they thought, because obviously I didn't actually do nothing in class. But in fact, at home, I would put the graft in and made sure that I, got the results I wanted. But yeah, so for me, it was really about coming out that confidence, breaking that barrier. And I think politics really allow that, because you're often chucked into an environment where you're just left to speak, and you have to speak, and you have to speak for your constituents, people who voted for you, and that people who rely on you and want you to fight on their behalf. And that was a very difficult journey on how to do it, push into the deep end. But I certainly would never regret it.
Mm. And when you were on the Shadow Youth Cabinet and you were a member of that organization, your first experience of public life, I suppose, as a young person, what would you regard as your biggest achievement? Was it a learning curve for you, or what did you see as something that you look back on and think, wow, I can't believe I did that?
Yeah, well, for me, I guess the biggest thing was being able to go into an audience of these senior stakeholders, young people, and be able to give a speech. It was huge. May not mean a lot to a lot of people, but to me, to be able to go into a room full of people and stand there and be able to say every single word properly without struggling and confidently was a big, big, big thing for me. So out of everything I've ever done, the fact I was able to do that is for me, it's such a big thing, because I know how much I struggled with it growing up. I know how much it affected me and what it led me to get involved in, because I didn't really want to come out and speak. So the ability to go out and speak confidently in public audiences really kind of was the building, was the start of something phenomenal for me.
Alhamdulillah, you were given that opportunity by your head teacher, be it with the threat of not being able to go to prom. But do you think that those opportunities are available to as many young people as they need to be, particularly those from your background, from one of the most deprived areas in the country, and also from a Muslim, Pakistani, Asian background? Are enough of those opportunities out there for our young people?
No, to be quite frank, no. So I do a lot of work with schools now. So I work with a lot of private schools, a lot of public schools, and one thing I noticed, certainly when I go to the private schools and I talk to young people, there's a lot of emphasis on building confidence in young people from a very young age. They're instilling those skill sets that I, had many, many years later on. But from the age of when they're going to year 5, 6, year 7, and even sometimes younger, they're really embedding those confidence skills. But go out there and speak and build on your confidence. And unfortunately, local authorities don't really focus on that. And there's a whole host of reasons why those things aren't available. But I really think that that's something that we're missing out on. And because if you can really instill confidence in a young person, allow them to come out their shell, they will perform a lot better. They'll feel happy in what they're doing, and they'll want to go out there and really go and really achieve the best they can.
Mm. And is there far too much of an emphasis on the academic book and paper type study in schools today? Because there are stories where teachers have actually discouraged children and young people from getting involved in these type of activities because of the genuine fear that it's going to take them off track from their studies and it could serve to their detriment in the long term.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I would recommend it to any parent. If you've got children at school now, my recommendation would be, having gone through that journey, is get them involved in extracurricular activities. That may be sports, that may be doing something at a debating centre, whatever it is, get them involved. And when I talk about my journey, I would not have gone into university and gone on to the things that I went on to do without having that extra criminal activity on my CV.
Mm. And that activity which ultimately gave you the skills that you use to this very day in your role.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the ability to really sit in a forum with other young people, like-minded young people, all wanting the same thing, to want to achieve better for your local area. And how you do that will be in many different factors on how you go about doing that. But building those skill sets that will stay with you for such a long time and will help you in your further life.
And being able to influence decision makers and make decisions, that at a young age, through the mechanism that you were given, must have been incredibly empowering for you and the young people that were with you at the time.
Yeah, we worked on so many different campaigns. We worked on, the general election campaigns. We were influencing MPs. We were going to the House of Commons. We were meeting with members of the House of Lords. We met, prime ministers, council leaders. We met so many powerful people. And the fact we were able to sit in the room with them and be able to tell them, look, you're not getting it right. You're not listening to young people. This is how you need to do things. And then actually seeing that thing happening as well, what we were recommending was just such a phenomenal thing. And we had great links with the local media. We were able to go and give radio interviews and TV interviews and do articles for the local press. And people actually saw the fact we were making a difference. These are not young kids who have just been given their position for a tokenistic gesture. But these people are actually going out there using their skills, things that they've learned over the period that they're involved in the organizations, and really making a difference in their area.
Absolutely. Wasim Ali, we're in conversation with today the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner for the region, the second largest force in the country. He's someone who has served as the head of the largest youth organization in the UK Youth. He's also been extensively involved in youth politics, community work over many years, but someone who has, alhamdulillah, achieved a huge amount of success in a very short space of time. We're speaking to him about his journey, his first steps in that particular world, how that journey progressed, and he's sharing with us the situation that he was in when he was a youngster at school to where he is now. If you've got a question, please do get in touch. We are Behind the Headlines. We're British Muslim TV. Inshallah, we'll be back right after this break. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Behind the Headlines here on British Muslim TV. As you know, we're here each and every week with the great honor and privilege of being able to interview an inspirational personality from all walks of life, giving us the inspiration and motivation that we need to do better, to go that step further in our life. And alhamdulillah, today it's my great honor and privilege to be in conversation with Wasim Ali. Wasim is the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands region, the second largest police force in the country. He's someone who may be younger in age than many of the politicians that you see, but alhamdulillah, he's achieved a huge amount in a very short space of time, from 10 Downing Street to being invited by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth to Buckingham Palace, to serving as the chair of the largest youth organization in the country. He has attained a huge amount of success, but from very humble beginnings, as he's just been speaking to us about. Wasim, before the break, we were speaking about your first steps into public life, how you were given the opportunity to effectively become a youth member of your local council. But then some years later, you took the huge step of actually standing for public office yourself. How did that come about? Because we were speaking to Afzal Khan MP last week, and he said, he qualified as a solicitor later on in life. And when he decided to stand to become a councillor, it was a big decision. It was a big pay cut in his situation. What was that decision process like for you to take that chance and stand for office?
Yeah, so I guess it's something that I always wanted to do. Once I got involved in youth politics, I quickly joined a national political party, and I got involved in the activity of the party. And I found a home in politics, policies I agreed with, political party that I wanted to support, a party that I wanted to see in government. But locally, I really wanted to not be the one lobbying to make a difference, but actually be somebody who can make a difference now. So rather than shouting from the picket line and asking politicians to, this is what we need, actually being part of the circle now, being part of the ring, and actually seeing those changes happening and making those changes for the people. And for me, I saw a massive gap. I saw a massive gap in our council, that there weren't many young people, not many people my age at all, and not many age within any remit, with any range have been within my age at all on the council. So what I saw was an opportunity of somebody young who wants to make a difference, who can definitely bring a different perspective onto the council, who went on, obviously after getting involved in politics, I did work nationally, and I wanted to bring all that experience back and really rein it back in my local area, and use it to kind of really help the council in progressing its agenda in supporting young people and making the area a better place.
Your first day being elected, mashallah, in 2018, arriving in that council chamber, was it a culture shock for your colleagues to see someone like you there, a young person? And if you look at the average age of a councillor, I think it's still 60-something or 70-something in terms of people who retire and later on in life they become councillors. What was it like?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I walked in, I was shocked by some of the practices that I saw, and I thought, things need to definitely change here. And as soon as I walked in, I saw opportunity. I didn't think that, well, this is really bad and we need to go out and start saying, well, this isn't what I expected it to be, and this is not what I want to do. I went in there and thought, wow, okay, this is the base we're starting from. Now, this is the the bar that's been set, and now we have to work to improve it and make things better. And I am at a place now where I can really, really make that difference now. Everybody was so nice, everybody was very welcoming, great officers, great councillors, all supported me during the campaign, and then obviously supported me as I went to the council. I had great support from my co-council colleagues, but I really saw this as an opportunity as to really, really change the culture of the council.
Mm. And in that first year, you were on the council. Was obviously an introductory time for you as well, although you've done and did youth politics before. Being there in the actual council chamber, making the decision yourself, as you said, rather than lobbying people. What would you say is your biggest achievement from that period of your life there, that first year you were on the council?
Yeah, so my first year on the council, what you generally do when you become a councillor, your first year should always be used as an opportunity to get to know your ward. And although many of us live in our wards and we know the area, but it's very different when you're dealing with other people's problems. So in my first year, I stuck with tradition and did not go for any positions on the council, and just used my first year to really get to know my local ward. You asked about my key achievements. So I'll give you an example of a casework I had, which is completely outside the remit, and it really kind of goes to home about the work of a councillor and how open the remit is, so that it's not actually fixed to one word, one area of work. I had somebody call me, a gentleman telling me that a friend of his is currently stuck in Italy. The Indian nationals in Italy, and they don't have health insurance, and the daughter is actually severely unwell with a kidney problem. And for me, I'm just thinking, what do I do? I mean, how do I help them? Are they supposed to go to the MP, or who are the right people to talk to? And so I called the MP and various other people, and unfortunately, it was very because I didn't have travel insurance, it was very difficult to get support for them and make arrangements. So they were in Italy. Their daughter's severely unwell. They've been hit with I think it was £50,000 bill. Wow. To get the treatment their daughter needed, and they were literally in tears every time I spoke to them. I don't know how they got my number. The gentleman did live in my ward, but somehow this meant it was meant to be that I was going to deal with this case. And so I quickly went to my MP. He advised me to, he took the case on and spoke to the Home Office. Unfortunately, the Home Office weren't being very supportive in supporting this family. So I thought, I'm going to take this to my own hands. And I work in the hospital, so I know how the hospital system works. And I called the Children's Hospital and said, well, let's just try it. So I called and spoke to a consultant there and said, this is the situation we're under. This family really needs support. They can't afford it. They're really going to struggle. This is a huge bill. They've made a mistake. They didn't get travel insurance, but we need to do something to support these people. and thankfully, we managed to get to an agreement, an arrangement that they would bring the child here, that they would treat the child in the UK. She is a British national, but they were going to charge the parents in excess of £10,000 for the sort of logistics of bringing the family here. Family were quite happy with that. Although it was going to be difficult for them, they were willing to make the arrangement and get that arranged. But once the family came here, and she was brought to Children's Hospital, and then the hospital said, well, given how ill your daughter is, we're actually going to waiver the cost, so we're not going to charge you a thing for the treatment. Wow. And it was such an amazing thing. And that family till today have never forgotten. When it's my birthday, they'll give me a call and say hello. It's Eid, they will send me Eid, like an Eid message. And, we're in regular contact whenever they need support. It's just, the fact is, in that first year, I had that experience and was dealing with that casework. And I knew then that as a counsellor, my job was not to go sort out people's bins and cut the trees and do the normal casework that you're told about when you're a counsellor. It's far more than that. You really have to go out your way, and you can really make a difference for people if you have the willingness and want to really do it. And for me, that was amazing. And since then, that's kind of set the bar for what kind of counsellor I wanted to be.
Wow. What an incredible and moving story there that you've shared of a case that you yourself dealt with. And as you said, Wasim, it's a very epitome and definition of public service. You become a public servant, and whatever it is that people need help with, you're trying your best to go and help them and do whatever you can for them. And you really went that extra mile, even when you saw that initial obstacle. That didn't stop you. That didn't deter you. You were determined to ensure that young girl was able to come back to the UK and get the potentially life-saving treatment that she needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody who thinks that a role of a counsellor is someone who just does very minimal casework, trust me, you'll get that call. And counsellors often are put to extreme. We don't have staff around us. We don't have that, the support MPs do. We're pretty much live our normal lives, and then we're doing this to supporting people when we can fit it around. It can be very difficult, but nobody goes into becoming a counsellor if you don't want to do it. If you don't want to serve the people and be that public servant, then you wouldn't want to. So you become a counsellor because you want to go out your way. You want to make a difference to people, and you really, really, really want to see your area as a better area for people.
Absolutely. And do you think that you standing for the council, Wasim, has inspired other young people, not just in your area, but further afield, to put themselves forward as well? Have you seen more young people getting involved in politics compared to when you were younger?
Well, a year later, when I was on the council, a gentleman by the name of Ahmad Bostan joined the council. So I don't know if I had any part in inspiring him. So I'd like to think so.
Alhamdulillah, very much so. Absolutely. And many more, I think, now that Sandwell Council has, I think it's over 50% of the council is from Black, Asian or minority ethnic background, more young people than ever before. And we're seeing that now across the country. So many young people, I suppose, with the emergence of flexible working in people's day-to-day jobs, it's given them the opportunity to now put themselves forward for public office and take on that huge responsibility, Wasim.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we're seeing it across the country. We're seeing it across, more and more young people are getting involved in politics. The old guard no longer exists. The barriers are still there, but they are coming down, and we're supporting each other. I get often messages, calls from aspiring counsellors, a lot younger than my age now, and they want to come in, they want support, they want advice about how to get through the system, and I'm always happy to provide that support and help in supporting getting through the system. But it's so good to see that there is a genuine interest from people that want to make a difference, that want to bring something new to their areas, and they want to start changing things.
Absolutely. We're in conversation with Wasim Ali, the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, someone who at a very young age has achieved so much, and very much speaking about that difference that you can make in public office. If you're out there thinking politics sounds boring, or politics sounds like it's a very dirty game and there's so many issues with it. No, well, actually entering that world is a world where you can make a huge amount of difference. If you're out there and you've got ideas of how to improve your local area, your local community, or even nationally, internationally, politics is an avenue that you should most certainly consider. If you've got a question for Wasim, we'd love to hear from you. 01924 231 083 is the studio number. That's 01924 231 083. You can also get in touch with us on Twitter at British Muslim TV, and we are also on Facebook, British Muslim TV. We would love to hear from you on the program today, on your thoughts on how you get involved in your local community. Have you ever considered standing for public office? Is there a particular concern that's holding you back from putting yourself forward? We would love to hear from you on the program. It's Behind the Headlines. It's British Muslim TV. We'll be back right after this break. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome back to the show. We are in conversation with Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner Wasim Ali about his incredible journey to the top of the political world. He is now possibly the youngest Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner in the entire country. He's been the first in many positions, actually. I also believe that I think he was the first person of BAME background, of ethnic minority background, to actually head up the UK youth organisation as well, which I think is very, very impressive indeed. Now, Wasim, you entered the local authority. You became Councillor Wasim Ali in 2018, and mashallah, in 2019, in your early 20s, if I'm not mistaken, you were appointed to the cabinet. Tell me more about that. How did that happen?
Yeah, so a year later, we had a new leader come to the council, and I get a call after she's been elected. The following day, she says, Wasim would like you to join the cabinet. I was like, wow, okay, well, this is a bit, well, are you sure? And yeah, she's like, no, I want you on board. I want you to be part of my team, and want you on the cabinet. I was like, okay, cool. Come see me the next day. So went to the room, into the cabinet office, and there was a host of us standing there. So we all kind of knew who's part of the cabinet. We weren't quite sure what portfolios. And then she'd read a list, and it's just simply, Wasim, you're having this, you're having this, you're having this. And I ended up with finance, and we pushed back a bit. Well, finance? Yeah, I'm not quite sure if finance is my thing, leader. I was like, no, you're going to do finance. I was like, okay then. So I got given the portfolio for finance and so resources and core services. What took me back by that was the fact I didn't have any experience in finance, never done finance in my life. My background is in law. That's where I studied, and that's where I knew. But I was given a great support network to get me up to speed about what's happening with the council's finances, a real good understanding about local government finances, and in fact, it's one of the areas of work that I've really, really enjoyed. I really enjoyed my time working with the council finances. We had great officers, great team, and the cabinet itself was a phenomenal opportunity to really, really kind of set the direction of the council, but ultimately making sure that the finances are in good order.
And a huge responsibility put on your shoulders overnight. You were dealing with some £800 million budget that you were ultimately responsible for, and at a time when local government has had some significant funding constraints as well. It can't have been easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So massive budget, massive population, huge constraint, huge demand, obviously being quite a deprived area, a lot of demand on council services. But thankfully, the council's always been in a good position financially. We've had very good council management of finance within the budget, and ultimately that does help. And we had a really good team of officers who were very supportive, who knew what they're doing, very skilled in their area of work, which made the job a hell of a lot easier, and meant that there weren't often much difficult decisions to be made.
And you actually, in Sandwell Council, have pioneered a number of very unique support programs as well, particularly for your residents during what have been increasingly difficult times, like the 100% council tax reduction scheme. Tell us more about that and how important it is and was to you as the finance cabinet member to ensure that while the council was facing tough times, you protected your residents from that.
Yeah, so when you're often given decisions like this, it really tests your politics. So this is where an opportunity really comes out in politics to really test, what you stand for in politics and who are the people that you're going to be supporting. So we have a scheme at our council that anybody who's on a low income or receives any benefits is entitled to a 100% council tax reduction. And the reason is simply because we know there's a lot of people who require it and need it and are in dire need of support. Um, but there's always been a stigma around, well, we have to start charging them a small percentage, if it's 5%, 10%. And there's always been quite a bit of push to make it happen. When I was in my position as a cabinet for finance, I was actually stubborn about this and said, no, absolutely not. These people are really hard up. They're really struggling. And if we start making them pay even a little bit of council tax and they can't afford it, what we're essentially going to do is add on their debt. They won't be able to afford it. They're going to default on their accounts. We're going to have to send bailiffs and start those court proceedings. And ultimately, they're going to have to bear the cost of it. We're going to have to pay for legal costs and all the other rest of it, debt collectors. And it's only going to cost them more money for the public. So I'm very proud that we continue to pioneer that scheme today. We're the only council in the whole of the Midlands who still provides that scheme. So for me, it's a great achievement, something I'm very proud of, and I know it's supporting hundreds of thousands of people across the borough.
Mm. And what would you say was your greatest challenge as the Cabinet Member for Finance? Because I believe that your time in office in the Cabinet also included the start of the terrible coronavirus pandemic itself.
Yeah, so when Corona came, I was asked by the leader to step up to become deputy leader of the council. So then that meant added responsibilities and more sleepless nights and stress, but that's the job. But my most challenging time was when we had the decision of increasing council tax. You've just gone through the coronavirus, council budgets at strain. Governments now said that you need to increase council tax up by 5%. I was not comfortable about that at all. I can't go out to my residents and hardly say that you've gone for the most toughest period that we've ever gone through. You're possibly on the brink of losing your job. Your work-life balance is all over the place. You're not getting support that you need from government. And on top of that, now we're going to increase your council tax by 5%. So that was possibly one of the most difficult decisions I had to make as cabinet member. And I'm very proud that we managed to come to an agreement. Again, the officers were fantastic in supporting me on this. We did increase council tax, unfortunately, but at a lower level at 2.99%, which was actually the lowest increase across all councils in the West Midlands. So although we had to increase council tax, the hit wasn't as bad as other councils. And again, the people of Sandwell managed to get a good level of service provided to them because, again, our politics and the way we look at it and that we have the resident side and always on our side are the residents.
Mm. And that experience for you, stepping up to become deputy leader of the council during the COVID pandemic, being appointed to the cabinet only a year after you got elected, looking back on that now, how do you see that period now? Was it a time of challenge, or do you think it's made you a better person, a better politician, a better professional around for it?
I mean, so before the coronavirus pandemic and before I was in my post on the cabinet and deputy leader, I generally thought I knew my community. I thought, I know the people of Smethwick, I know what they're about, I know the people of Oldbury, and I know what they like, and this is the kind of thing they're interested in. But I had no idea when the Corona pandemic started. What I saw was community spirit like I've never seen it before. People coming out their houses, literally feeding people for no reason at all, because their willingness to want to support and make a difference in people's life. Our food banks were always full. We didn't have an issue collecting food. We were able to feed over 150,000 people, which was absolutely incredible. And the support we had from our communities, from our faith organisations, from our community voluntary sector, it was absolutely incredible. And that's when I really stood back and said, well, what an incredible place Sandwell is. What a really incredible place this area is to live in. Because when it really mattered, when the time came, the people of Sandwell stood up and supported their own.
And you actually created the first local test and trace in the entire country. Now, for an area like the borough of Sandwell, where many people still had to work even during the height of the COVID pandemic, what did that mean for you? What type of a decision was that? Because many did criticize you at the time for taking that decision.
Yeah, and the thing is, the great thing about local government is that you have a lot of the directors and the politicians. They're always seeking innovation. They're always seeking to make change and want to do something, things differently. That's the nature of the game that we're part of. So our public health director said, she wasn't really happy with what the government were giving in respect of test and trace, and that she wanted to try things a little bit different. So we all sat down and we had a look at, what are the faults, what is it we need to focus on, and how do we make this better? And then she brought back a proposal. And obviously it's a risk because there's a global pandemic happening, and here's Sandwell Council doing their own thing and not sticking to the line of the government, and now trying to recreate create something that's not there, and there is something that's that everybody else is using. So we took a big risk in that, and we knew that we were going to get criticism for it, but thankfully it worked, and it got so much national success that even the leader of the opposition in his speech to the LGA was that he was crediting the work that Sandwell did in creating its test and trace system.
And even today, I understand that one of the reasons why COVID rates have stayed under control in the borough of Sandwell is because of that local test and trace that still is operational.
Absolutely, and it's we're in talks with so many different councils about how they can adopt a system that we're using. So it gained a lot of coverage for us as a council, but ultimately what we know is that we've been able to go out there and save lives with this system. The fact that we created our system that's helped people get back into work and give them more accurate data in terms of if they're infected by the virus or not. But ultimately, we were able to save lives because of this, and that in itself is a massive, huge achievement, and that's what it's about.
Absolutely. We're in conversation with Wasim Ali, the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, and he's talking to us about his journey in life and in politics and the incredible steps that he's taken from youth politics, or actually right from the beginning, from a person who didn't really concentrate much in school and didn't really find school for him and wasn't really being engaged in the way that he wanted to be, to actually being able to enter the world of youth politics through the threat of not being able to go to a prom. And now, mashallah, standing for the council in 2018, appointed to the cabinet in 2019, responsible for over £800 million budget, only in his early 20s at that time, of course. And after the break, we're going to be speaking to him about his move to regional government, to the regional government in which now he, mashallah, serves, and that particular transition, the challenges, the ups, the downs, and everything else in between. You are welcome to contact us, of course, if you have a question for Wasim Ali, a hugely inspirational role model for so many, and someone I'm sure you'd want to ask a question to. 01924 231083 is a studio number. We're at British Muslim TV on Twitter, and we are British Muslim TV on Facebook. We would love to hear from you on the program today with your thoughts and your questions, comments. Remember, there is always a place where you and I can make a difference. We'll be back right after this. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Behind the Headlines on British Muslim TV. And would you believe it? We're already in the final segment of the show. We're in conversation with Wasim Ali, the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner. Is someone who has achieved a huge amount of success, mashallah, at a very young age, from 10 Downing Street to Buckingham Palace to the cabinet of the Metropolitan Borough of Sandwell, and now to the Office of Regional Government that he, alhamdulillah, holds. Now, Wasim, you became the Cabinet Member for Finance, unprecedented challenges as well during that time. COVID happened as well during that time, the COVID pandemic. What inspired you to make that transition into becoming the Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, quite possibly the youngest in the country, mashallah. How did that come about?
Gosh, I absolutely had no plans or any desire to want to go and be in this position. But the strange thing is, I would often campaign for the PCC candidate when I was early involved in the Labour Party, and I never once thought that I would be entering this position or and get anywhere near to the office, because it was such a complex bit of work. Policing is so complicated, and it's such a an area of work that's so important to so many people. And when you go into doorsteps and canvas, one of the biggest issues that gets raised with us is any matter in relation to speeding, crime, or anything alike. So you know that the work here is not to be underestimated. It's a great deal of work. But for me, I was given a phenomenal opportunity by a great guy, and a great guy being Simon Foster, who's the PCC for the West Midlands, a genuinely amazing gentleman, somebody who really cares about the community, somebody who really understands communities, particularly those from the BAME community. This guy really gets it. He's passionate about what he does. He has a great plan. And when he made the offer to invite me to stand, and when I went for the process, it was a non-brainer for me. For the opportunity to work with Simon and really see through his plan in making the West Midlands a safer place for the residents of the West Midlands was a non-brainer. So I took the opportunity to apply for it. Was successful. And now I'm here.
Now, Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, it's a very long title, and I guess one of the difficulties that those of us who are familiar with the political world have is explaining a lot of this to people who are perhaps not as familiar with politics. What do you do in your day-to-day role? What is your role all about in West Midlands Police? Are you out there catching criminals? What are you doing?
No, unfortunately not. But it's essentially what I do is, so Simon's the Police and Crime Commissioner. He is elected by the people of the West Midlands, and he's elected to deliver his police and crime plan. In order to do that, he has a team around him, an officer team with a chief executive who support him in his office. But he also has a political team around him. And him being that team is myself as Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner, Tom McNeil, who's the other Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner. And we're also great to have, and very, very fortunate to have Nikki Brennan working with us as the Victims Commissioner, the first Victims Commissioner in the country. And her role primarily focuses on supporting victims. Myself and Tom have different portfolios, much like when I was at the council. So my portfolio is, again, I've been lumbered and given the finance portfolio. I must have done something good at Sandor to be given this again, but I've got the finances of the force, West Midlands Police, recruitment of officers, retention of officers, performance of the police, and also looking after Black Country neighbourhood policing. And that's my remit and what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Let me ask you about policing, because as you said, there's unprecedented challenges right now. You're absolutely right. When you knock on the door as a councillor or as an MP, you're told about a number of issues that are actually police matters. They're not matters with which councillors or MPs or politicians of that nature are able to directly do much apart from raise the issue with the local policing team. What are the challenges in your day-to-day role at a time when we've got less police officers on the street and arguably more crime and more issues to deal with?
Yeah, so fundamentally, one of the biggest issues is resources. We currently do not have enough officers in the force, and this is why there's a massive recruitment process, and the government thankfully has actually put money into recruiting officers, and we are doing everything we can to recruit officers. But what we're also doing at this point is we're not just recruiting officers for the sake of recruiting officers. We're recruiting officers that look like the West Midlands. So there's a massive campaign, and the force has been doing it for a number of years, but Simon has reaffirmed that commitment to recruit 1,000 extra BAME officers in the West Midlands. So we have a police force that genuinely looks like the people it serves in the West Midlands. And we know this because we know historically there's been issues with certain communities and policing. And to combat that, we need to invite those communities to come in and join us and work for us and come see what the West Midlands Police is all about. And And this doesn't just mean giving them, asking them to become police officers. We as politicians, as people who are now responsible for leading the force and holding the chief constable to account, our job is to go out to those communities and tell them and make sure that we're listening to them so we can enact those ideas, any innovation ideas they have to build those community links. That's our role, and that's what we'll be doing. And that, in essence, is part, what the job is, to rebuild back those communities and build back neighbourhood policing with those communities.
Getting a police force that's more reflective of the population at large is certainly to be welcome. But also we have huge challenges around hate crime across the country, including in the West Midlands. The venom of Islamophobia, the venom of anti-Semitism, homophobia, all of these forms of hate are sadly increasing. How are you in the West Midlands, in your role as Assistant West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, someone who is acutely aware of those issues and could also relate to those issues as someone from a minority ethnic background yourself? How are you ensuring that they are at the top of the priority list for the West Midlands Police Force, the second largest in the country?
Yeah, absolutely, Ahmed. And we're always asked this question. We have the Violence Reduction Unit, which is a task force set up to deal with violence, but within there we have the victims team, which is headed up by Nikki Brennan, who support victims. We know there's thousands of hate crime happening on a daily basis within the West Midlands, and for us, we really want to support the victims. We know that we'll catch the bad guys, we'll go after them and catch them, but the victims who are dealing with this trauma, they need the right support for them to support them to get over those ordeals and to help them get back on their feet and ensure that, they can feel safe again in those areas. Our job is to keep people safe, and that's what we're focusing on. But we will catch the bad guys. We're working on catching those guys. But what we also know, and it's become more and more difficult, that the nature of crime has changed. So whereas before you would be able to see your, the person that's committing the crime, today that person is generally going to be behind a computer screen. And where do you begin? And, that work has to be started. It has to really be looked into. And there's a great piece of work happening on that right now in dealing with hate crime behind the screen. But we know this is something that's been brewing up for many, many, many years, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
And it's really encouraging to hear that Simon Foster, yourself and your team in the West Midlands have established the first Victims Commissioner in the country, because actually that's been needed for a long time. A lot of victims of crime do not feel that they are taken seriously sometimes when they go in to a police station or when they fill out forms. Is someone going to get back to them? Are they going to be taken for real? Are they going to be given the attention that they need? What's going to happen? How long is the process going to take? Genuine concerns from victims of all types of crime.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, ultimately when you're, we've all been victim. I mean, I've been a victim of crime. I've got many friends and colleagues who've been a victim of crime. And often all you need is that, that support network to really give you that assurance that that the matter's been dealt with by the force, and we're taking every action to deal with those that have committed the crime. That isn't always easy, and I'm so grateful that we have Nikki in place who can lead on that work to ensure that victims are supported in the right way, that the force is focused on supporting victims. But we will do everything we can to make sure that our policies and the work that we're doing and the resources that we have go into supporting victims of crime in the West Midlands.
Wasim, what would be your message to many young people watching out there thinking, is politics for me? Should I really go into it? Could I do it? Do I have the ability to do it? What would be your message to them?
My message is very simple. Take this as somebody who was literally on the opposite side of the spectrum, somebody who was involved in crime, who didn't really give two damns about what was happening in society, who had no interest in politics, no interest in policing, was often at cross ends with the police, who now is actually working with the police in a completely different role. My message to you is that we have one opportunity. And when I look at this audit today, the British Muslim TV, to our community as a Muslim community, when we go out there in the community, when we go out there in the real world, we're not just wearing the badge of our parents, of our, of our grandparents, but we're wearing the badge of our community as Muslims. And we have to send a very strong message out there to the people, because there's a lot of stigma and a lot of stereotypes around how Muslims behave and what young Muslim boys particularly are getting up to. But unless we go out there and make that change and get involved in society to go and make our areas a lot safer, and safer for our colleagues and friends, that's when people are going to start listening. But I'm also very proud of the work that we do as a community, and I think we don't get that enough. We saw during the COVID pandemic the amount of organizations, Muslim organizations, that were going out there supporting food banks, and weren't just supporting our own community. We were supporting many people that aren't from the Muslim community. We were making that difference. We were standing there. We've always been supporting them. We know that we contribute so much, millions of pounds per year in charity. A lot of that money is kept in the UK, supporting British people, much like ourselves here in the UK. So we have a lot to be proud of. But all of my message to you is get involved. Please do. Don't think this is not for you. Believe me, this was not for me 10 years ago. And I thought that, but today I'm here. I'm in a position where I can make a difference and make change. And ultimately, what I want to do is make sure that my culture, my religion, is represented in the right way, because we need to stop this negativity around Islam and Muslims in the UK.
Alhamdulillah, so true. And it's the best form of dawah, the best form of spreading the true message of Islam is to get involved and make that difference. Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner Wasim Ali, Jazakallah khair, thank you very much for joining us today on Behind the Headlines and sharing with us your meteoric rise in such a short space of time to the office that you presently hold. We really appreciate your time today. There we are. That was Wasim Ali joining us on the program. I hope you have been as inspired as I am by the great story of Assistant Commissioner Wasim Ali. Inshallah, we'll be back next week, same time, same place, with another inspirational guest with the aim to motivate and inspire. See you then. Assalamu alaikum.